Leicester is not a city known for its castle, but it does have one. It just takes a little looking for. It is significant and is a scheduled ancient monument. Large parts of the medieval castle do remain. They're just hidden behind a later facade. Just look at these amazing Norman arches inside the Grand Hall as an example. This video will show the castle in 2024, 1989, and go back to the beginnings with some artistic impressions taken from around the area of what it could have looked like. It'll also include a rare look inside the Norman Great Hall that was actually a law court up until the 1990s and is now part of the Montfort University. I hope you enjoy. I'll be making more similar videos, so please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching Eclectic Experience. Change seen through images. Leicester Castle is located here, in the centre of Leicester, next to the Montfort University. It was once described as the Royal Palace in the Midlands, but after 1400 its significance declined. The parts of the castle that have survived have mainly done so because other uses were found for them over the many years that has followed since. This is a medieval map used by Leicester Council to highlight the medieval parts of the city. This shows the castle remains, and it's also next door to the Newark area. Let's start with the classic survivor, the Motte or Mound. After the Normans conquered England, they built Motte and Bailey castles all over the country to keep the local population under control. Leicester's one would have been put up around 1068. Also, the Normans made use of what remained of the old Roman defences in choosing their location. This was all in the time of William I. Making use of one of the many excellent signs that are around Leicester, this is what the medieval castle might have looked like when it was initially built of wood. It was bounded by the River Soar, and where the castle gardens are now would have been an impenetrable swamp, providing excellent defence. Now this I found really interesting when I first found it out. The mound, which we can still see today, would originally have been about 12 metres or 40 foot high. That is some height, but it's not that high today, and that's because it was lowered to its current 9 metres or roughly 30 foot. Incredibly, because in the 19th century a pub turned it into a bowling green. I've never heard of this anywhere else, but to some extent you can see why. The views from the top of the mound are really good, as you'd expect from a castle. But what I found really interesting though was the top of the mound, even after it had been flattened, is not actually that big, which meant when it was at its original height the top would have been a lot smaller, which means there would only have been room for a pretty small tower. However, that small tower was nothing when compared to the grand hall of the castle, which was not small. It is just down the edge of the mound in the Bailey, and this is what we'll look at next. Now again, when I first saw this hall, I simply could not see the medieval connection. This was a grand brick frontage from 1695, but that's it is just a front. If we look down at the bottom, a clue lies with the stonework on which the brickwork sits. And if we move round the building at the other sides, we can see significantly more stonework, especially at the bottom, suggesting its medieval origins. This was a grand hall and is thought to be the oldest surviving aisled and bay divided timber hall in Britain, dating from around 1150, so a staggering 870 years old, especially as it's still in use today. Now, using timber, there were limits to the span of a room, but by adding extra bays on either side, it was able to expand the usable space. hence the term aisled and bay divided timber hall. Looking up, we can see the bay on this side, and there is another bay on the other river-facing side of the hall. The support columns for the bay that remain are now encased, as we can see on the left of this picture, and incredibly, they actually came from the original hall itself. If we look up in this well-preserved Victorian courtroom, we can see in the centre this incredible survivor from the Norman period. The stonework. This is actually original, with only minor repairs, in significant contrast to other parts of the hall where the deterioration was so bad that it had to be either completely rebuilt or red brick had to be added, as we see now across the building. The hall originally had no subdivisions and would have had a fire in the middle, and as with all great halls, it would have been used to run the estate, for entertainment, and a lot of people would have actually lived on the hall floor and benches. The Lord would have used this room to dispense justice, and that function carried on right up until 1821 in the Grand Hall as it was, but then it was actually split into the two courtrooms we see today. It's likely, if this had not happened, that the building would have been taken down, as has happened to most of the other castle buildings. When I took this photo in 1989, it was still actually an active court, not finally closing until 1992. It has now been taken over by the Montfort University, and incredibly, a lot of the Victorian courtroom has been left intact, including the route down to the cells. I often wonder what it might be like to have lectures in here. The refurbishment also uncovered this bricked up doorway. So if we then cross the Bailey to the Church of St Mary de Castro, which actually translates as St Mary of the Castle, this incredible building has survived essentially because it's a church and has been in use as a church. It is a Grade 1 listed building. There's been a church on this site since probably around 918, but the current building, which still has some substantial Norman remains, was not put up until around 1107. This was it in 1989, and as it is now. The obvious difference is the 14th century spire, rebuilt in the 18th century, has gone. It became dangerous and had to be removed around 2014. The castle graveyard is also interesting, as it contains some of the old castle wall, and if we look along the wall, there are holes in it, and these were used to defend Leicester during the Civil War. There are two gateways to enter the castle. The stone gateway is probably late 14th century, and there's a sign up highlighting the possible Richard III connection, as he may well have gone through this when entering the Newark next door. Interestingly, the top of this gateway survived until 1832, when it was destroyed by fire during an election riot. These views have been taken from the street view as normal, but also from the Mound and from the herb garden next door. Outside the other gateway is a sign on the wall highlighting that Leicester greeted two kings in 2 days. Richard III, and then, after the famous battle, Henry VII. The previous gateway, the one that preceded this, was burnt down in the mid-15th century and was then replaced with this timber frame building and the adjoining range of apartments. This is a Grade 2 star listed building. Going up the steps on the castle mound, there is a sign about some cellars known as John of Gaunt's cellar, though they probably had nothing to do with John of Gaunt, having been built after his death. Unfortunately, they are not open to the public, so we can only see what it looks like from the pictures on the display board. The cellars were probably originally used for storage of the kitchens above, but they were also used to house prisoners during the Napoleonic Wars, as were several other places in Leicester. Some visiting tips. Opening times for this site are mixed. It's possible to visit the castle mound when the castle gardens are open. The church is regularly open. And for the Great Hall, it is best to check, as it is generally only open on Heritage Open days. I've not mentioned the magazine, which, although very close, wasn't actually a castle gateway. It was built to be a grand entrance to the Newark or New Work, which was itself a religious establishment. I'll be making that the subject of another video. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching Eclectic Experience, change seen through images.